This podcast is brought to you by Gridiron Heroics Media.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Welcome one and all to the Gridiron Heroics Football Show. I'm Max Dean. You can find me on Twitter at TheMaxDean. And today we are here to pick the Sunday and Saturday slate of NFL games for the last time in the 2022 regular season. Guys, it has been a good one. We've done almost every single week live so far. And today comes to a conclusion. As always, I have Kyle Nishida and Brison Owens to help me select the games. Pretty dead heat as we hit the end of the year. Kyle, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right. Looking forward to going through some of these games. Curious how you guys feel about some of these games, because obviously, you got a mixture of teams with something to play for, and then obviously a lot of teams with nothing to play for. So motivation's much more of a key in this week than say usually any other week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the motivations might shift. I mean, right now, some teams have something to play for, but by the time their game is played, maybe they don't, which is an interesting situation for them to be in. But Bryson, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. Like, this was a really tough week to pick games. I think week 18 and week 1 are the hardest weeks to pick games for this because you never know who's going to play. That by game time, half a team's starters could be sitting. And you're like, make my guy switch my picks. So this was a tough one. I'm interested to see what you guys had to say about a lot of these teams.
Yeah, I think this one where there's really no shame or guilt in picking and changing your pick last minute. You know what I mean? Like by the time we get to Sunday Night Football tomorrow, we might change. So we're gonna pick all of the games now from Saturday and Sunday, but and we're not gonna do a show tomorrow. But we might change our pick just like everybody else. Okay. I guess let's dive right in. We don't have any visual aids right now because Noah is not with us, but we're still going to shout out Noah Ashley for being awesome and our producer who does so much for the show. But first game of the weekend at 3:30 p.m. or 4:30 p.m. on Eastern Time, the Las Vegas Raiders are hosting the Kansas City Chiefs, and they're only 8.5-point favorites. This is probably closer than what the spread was earlier in the year. They've shown some life down the stretch, just specifically with Jarrett Stidham. The Kansas City Chiefs, they do need to win this game to maintain the number 1 seed, because I believe the way that it works is, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, based on Monday Night Football being called off last week, if they lose the tiebreaker to the Bills. But if they win the number 1 seed outright, because the Bills they just don't play as many games total. So the game matters for them. The game matters for the Raiders only in the sense that, it would be an embarrassing loss. And even though Josh McDaniels is probably still, going to be here next year no matter what, it would be a little bit of it would be going into the offseason with a sour taste in the mouth if they don't at least show up and play hard against the Chiefs. If they get smoked, it sets a rather poor tone for 2023, I think. So that being said, Kyle, I'll throw it to you. Do you think the Raiders can cover an 8.5-point spread here?
Yeah, the Chiefs have been kind of this weird team. I definitely think they're going to win this game, but their ability to cover large spreads has bit me multiple times this year, and I think it's bitten all three of us multiple times this year. So I'm actually going to take the Raiders plus 8.5 here. I have them at plus 9. I understand the motivation point is it's different on considering both of these two teams. However, I just think the Chiefs are gonna do just enough. They've been doing just enough in a lot of these big spread or like these sizable spread games. So I could see them winning by a touchdown here. And if they win by more, so be it. I just think that this is too big of a spread, and the Chiefs haven't had a haven't had the track record this season for me to take them at 8.5 here. So I'll take the Raiders plus 8.5.
Yeah, this was a really tough one because can I see the Chiefs winning this game by double digits? Of course I can, because they're the Chiefs. They're playing for a lot more. They're playing for the chance at the 1 seed. I think one of the things you might see is the Chiefs build up enough of a lead where they kind of start to sit their guys for the fourth quarter. Like the fourth quarter, you may not see Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, those kind of guys. If they build up a lead, and that can be a chance for the Raiders to cut into that, make it less than a 9-point lead. So I'm with Kyle here. I'm going to take the Raiders. They're going to be playing in front of their home fans for the last time of the season. Like you said, Max, they want to go into this offseason with some kind of momentum, and being close or possibly beating the Chiefs may just be enough for fans to get excited for next year. They do have a lot of talent still on this team. They still have Devontae Adams playing, Josh Jacobs, Darren Waller, all these guys are playing. And Jarrett Stidham played really, really well against the number one defense in football last week. I think part of that is lack of tape on Jarrett Stidham, with him being with a coach he's comfortable with, who he's been with his whole career. Something that he's going to have a less impressive game this week, I think. But I think he's going to do enough to keep the Raiders in this one to the end. So I do think the Chiefs win this game, but I think it's going to be closer than people think.
Yeah, I'm not confident with this game either way. I think it's so easy to see the Chiefs winning this game by more than 9 points. I mean, that's a touchdown and a field goal. And for them, that's like nothing. Like for them, they can score a touchdown and a field goal and be up 10-0 in the first 5-6 minutes of the game. Yeah, exactly. And we wouldn't bat an eye. So it really just depends how the rest of the game goes. And I think just divisional matchups, they always tend to be a little bit closer. So I will take the Raiders to cover here. Am I super confident in it? No, I'm not. But I'll just ride it with you guys. If we're wrong, I'll just chalk it up. I'm not going to be too upset. But we've seen the Chiefs cover big spread. Last possible moment, we've seen them like not even be close, like finish in a close game. So, all right. The Jacksonville Jaguars, red hot, are 6.5-point favorites at home versus the Tennessee Titans. And this is a game that we had kind of considered might be the Sunday night game. But the way that Tennessee played last week, the amount of guys that they have injured, even though there are a few more back this week than last week, and the way that the Jags have looked over the past few weeks, like no slowing down at all, it just made it look too much like this is like blowout central. So I don't think they wanted to risk putting that week 18 prime time, which I understand. And so again, Vegas thinks the Jags will win. I think we all think the Jags are going to win. It's weird to just assume that now. But do they win by a full touchdown is the question, Kyle.
I would honestly have gone with the Jags if Derrick Henry wasn't playing, but he is playing, and that changes the equation for him. This is one of the teams he absolutely destroys, regardless of wherever his health status is at. In 12 games against the Jaguars, 230 carries, 1,264 yards, and 16 touchdowns. So like he's averaging basically more than a touchdown whenever he plays the Jaguars. So I think with Henry in the equation, a couple guys on the Titans defense coming back, I think the spread's just a little bit too big for me to anticipate the Jaguars winning by a touchdown. I could totally see the Jaguars winning this game. I just think the spread's just a little bit too big, especially when I know the key players for the Titans are going to be there outside of, say, Ryan Tannehill. So I'll go with the Titans plus 6.5 here as the road dogs.
Yeah, I'm with Kyle here on this one too. For the same exact reason, Derrick Henry's coming back. I think that's a big deal for the Titans. He is the lifeline of that offense that runs through him quite literally. And with Derrick Henry back, I think he gives them a chance to stay in this game longer than people think. I do think the Jaguars come out and win this one, in large part because of how good Trevor Lawrence has played over the last 8 games. He has 14 touchdowns to 2 interceptions in his last 8 games, and he's going against the last ranked passing defense in the NFL. The Titans give up 279 passing yards a game. That is not a good look going into this one with a red hot quarterback and the pass catchers he has playing at the level they're playing at right now. I do think Joshua Dobbs impressed me a little bit when he went in against the Cowboys with like a week's worth of practice and didn't lose that game by 40 points. Like I was relatively impressed with Joshua Dobbs. I think he can do enough in this game. He's an NFL veteran. He's been in this league for a while. I think he can do enough in this game with Derrick Henry back to keep the Titans alive throughout this game. But I just don't think there's going to be enough for them to come out with a win. So I do think the Titans will backdoor cover here.
Yeah, I think I agree with you guys. This one I have a little bit more clarity on in terms of what I have like a gut feeling of how this is going to play out. And my instinct is that the Jags will win, but the Titans will be well coached. Derrick Henry will show up, he'll make an impact. And this will be the game where we're like, okay, well, Jags are red hot. They have the quarterback, so they'll be in any game. But this might remind us a little bit that this team isn't quite complete enough to maybe compete with some of the big time AFC contenders.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Jags will make the playoffs, but will be like, okay, so I think, instead of just continuing this red hot streak into the playoffs, I think this is kind of where they slow up a little bit. So I do think they win, but I do think it's by less than 6.5 points. So I agree with both of you guys. I will take the Titans to cover as well. I think this will just be a reminder of what a good coach Mike Vrabel is. They're playing for their playoff lives. I don't think it's going to be, a large point differential by the time we're done. All right. Those are our only 2 Saturday games. So now we get into the Sunday slate with quite a few games that don't matter. At least in the sense that not much changes for the playoffs. All right. So the Atlanta Falcons are hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Despite the fact that the Buccaneers are in the playoffs and the Falcons have a top 10 pick, this is only a -4 point differential for the Falcons. I assume, I haven't looked, but based on the fact that the Falcons are favored, the Buccaneers are probably resting a massive amount of their starters. I can only assume. Otherwise, the Buccaneers would have to be favored by at least a point here. So I haven't checked on that, but I think Bucks can't change their playoff position in any way. They are guaranteed to be the 4 seed. Can't go higher, can't go lower. So, if I were them, they're a little bit of an older roster. I would definitely be, kind of chilling out. I have no worries about Brady being rusty after 1 week of resting. So that's what we see here. So do the Falcons win without the Buccaneers starting all their guys? And do they win by 4 points? Kyle?
I actually, I still don't believe the Bucks are a very good team. But here's the thing. I'm gonna take them +4 here, and the only reason why is I've been reading that Todd Bowles is going to be playing his starters. And if that's the case, I see the Bucks being able to cover a 4, getting points in +4. They're the better team when their stars play, obviously. So I'll take them +4. Also, the other reason why is the manufactured motivation. Look, Tom Brady's never had a losing season in his career. He sure as hell does not want it to be a losing season this year, despite all the distractions, all the poor play that's gone on with this team. Being able to close out the regular season heading into the playoffs on a winning streak and with a winning record is a big deal for him. So I would imagine if Todd Bowles doesn't pull a fast one and pull his guys, I would imagine the Bucks are going to try to win this one. And if anything, if they play their guys, they should be able to be up by at least 2 touchdowns close by midway through the third quarter, and that could give them the opportunity to start pulling guys. So I'll take the Bucks +4, and hopefully Bulls doesn't pull a fast one.
Yeah, I'm again with Kyle here. for the exact same reasons. I've read the same reports that Todd Bowles and even Tom Brady backed it up, that they want to play their starters for this game. They don't think this is just a waste of a game. They think it is important for them building momentum and building like more chemistry going into the playoffs. This hasn't been a team with a ton of either of that all season. So this might be a good chance for them to at least go into the playoffs feeling a little bit more confident getting a win. But like Kyle said, I think this could be a chance where you see the starters play the first half, they build up some kind of lead, and then they pull them in the second half. That could change things. I am still going to take the Buccaneers in this one, especially at the +4 mark. If they're favorites, I might not take them here because they could take their guys out in the second half. That could lead to the Falcons really changing things. But I think they will have enough to build up a big enough lead where even with the backups in, I don't see the Falcons winning by more than 4 points. So I think the Bucs are going to take this game relatively seriously. I think the starters want to get another win before the playoffs. And even with the backups and everything, they have enough talent to keep the Falcons within 4 points here. So I'm going to take the Buccaneers at +4.
I think Brady always played in New England, even in the so-called meaningless games at the end of the season. I don't think he has it in him to take a week off. I think that they'll probably be winning. I don't know if it will be by a lot. I think they'll eventually pull their guys, and I don't know if the Buccaneers will necessarily even win the game, but I guess if I'm getting points for them and the starters will be in for at least some length of time, I don't think they would double down so hard on it if like they weren't at least going to be in the game for a while. So I'll roll with you guys too. I'm behind, so I'm gonna have to start picking some games differently from you guys. But yes, the Buccaneers +4 seems like the play here with the status of the team up in the air. I suppose if we get any word prior to tomorrow that they've changed their mind, then we can try and make the change quick before the spread shifts if possible. But all right. The Buffalo Bills are back on the field after the crazy situation on Monday night. So obviously we talked about that a little bit on Thursday. So I haven't spent a lot of time on it today, although some more news has come out that he now has the breathing tube out, DeMar Hamlin that is, and was able to FaceTime with the team, and it seems to be doing significantly better, which is fantastic. And I think the Bills are got to be going into this game with a lot of emotion. So I don't know if that makes them a little bit all over the place. I don't know if that makes them super honed in. I'm not necessarily sure what that kind of emotion does to this Bills team yet, because this is an unprecedented type of emotion. This isn't being frustrated that they lost to a division rival earlier in the year. This isn't, this is a truly unique situation. So I'm not sure exactly what it looks like, but there's no doubt it will be a charged stadium in Buffalo. So that being said, they're 7-point favorites over the Patriots, and the Patriots are fighting for their playoff lives. If they win this game, they are in as the 7th seed in the AFC. If the Bills win and the Chiefs lose, they are the number 1 seed. If they lose and the Bengals win and the Chiefs win, they drop all the way down into the 3rd seed. So they have a 2 seed swing potential based on their win or loss of this game and a little bit else. And the Patriots have everything on the line. So I think I pretty much covered the variety of outcomes here. Kyle, what do you think is going to come to fruition in this game?
Yeah, this is kind of a tough one because obviously the Bills are they're dealing with a bunch of emotions given what took place on Monday, and then on top of that, they'll actually be playing the game at home, which I think is a positive. But then again, I'm not sure how fans are going to react. I would imagine they're going to do everything they can to rally behind the team. That being said, at +7. I'm more inclined to take the Patriots. It's not that I don't trust the Bills. It's just I'm the unknown factor of what that team's mentally going to be kind of kind of makes me cautious around them. And meanwhile, you said it, the Patriots are playing for their playoff lives. So I was like, if they win, they're in. I don't know if they're going to be able to win. I could see the Bills just taking a while to get things going and then doing what they have done in the past and just kind of getting it in gear in the second half and then covering by or getting a win by 6.7 points or something like that. So I would take the Patriots +7 here. It's nothing against the Bills. I just need to see what they look like following what took place with DeMar Hamlin on Monday.
I'm going to take the Bills here to cover. They're going to take this game very, very seriously. If nothing else, I think they do. They're going to look at this as wanting to get a win for DeMar Hamlin, first of all. But then also, they're going to know whether they're playing for the 1 seed or not by the time they play, because the Chiefs would have already had their game. But even at that point, the Bills are still playing for seeding because they are still going to want to be the 2nd seed at that point instead of falling below the Bengals and get the better matchup. Because I think, I'm going to go on a limb and say the Bills would rather play the last wild card spot of the AFC instead of either the Chargers or Ravens going into the playoffs. So I think they're going to want to win this game. They're going to take it very seriously. And being at home with those fans, I think they're going to be rowdy. I think they're going to be all into this game. And the Patriots offense just at their peak can't even touch the Bills' floor offensively. Like it's that big of an offensive discrepancy, in my opinion. I think you're going to see the full display of Josh Allen in this game. I think he's going to do everything he can to get this win for the Bills. 7 points is a lot, especially when one team is playing for their playoff lives, but I just don't think the Patriots have enough talent on this team to even keep this game close. So I'm going to take the Bills to cover the 7-point spread at home.
I'm going to take the Bills as well. I think the Patriots just have such a specific way to win, and if the Bills are hot offensively, Patriots just can't keep up that way. You know what I mean? We've seen too many situations where the Patriots are grinding out a 2-point win versus, I don't remember what the score was, but teams like the Cardinals, teams that have had stagnant offenses, they're just getting it done. And, their defense is good. Their defense is very good. But I just don't think it's going to be enough in this game. So I'll take the Bills as well. I think no matter what, this game is going to be, this is going to be a game that's remembered, by the players, by the fans, coming out and how they perform after that situation is, I don't think that's something that any of us will ever forget, especially if you watch that live. I don't know if you guys were watching Monday Night Live. I was, and that will definitely be one of the, I don't want to say highlights, but most impactful memories of this season. We'll carry that with us. So I think that this game will be an ancillary piece of that memory. So I think the Bills will come in and win by more than 7 points, and probably, based on another pick that I'm going to make, knock the Patriots out of playoffs. And that they've got to love that too. So, all right. The Chicago Bears, playing for the number 1 overall pick, not the number 1 overall seed. They are 6-point underdogs to the Minnesota Vikings in Chicago. So the Bears, I believe they've already said that Justin Fields is not playing in this game. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's going to be
Yes.
Nathan Peterman.
Yeah. Okay. And the Vikings, let me just check they can move up and down in the standings, I believe, or right, for the seedings.
I think they can move as high as the 2 seed.
Yeah, they just need the
they
49ers to lose.
Because they lost to both the Eagles and the Cowboys, so they can't be the 1 seed.
Okay. So, I mean, I think that tells me everything that I need to know. But Kyle, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I'm taking the Vikings -6. I'm reading, at least so far this week, the Kevin O'Connell is saying that he's playing his guys, and if that's the case, I would take the Vikings -6 here. If they're playing their guys, they're easily better than the than the Bears, especially if Nathan Peterman's playing. And then in that fact, if they pull Cousins midway through the game, I think Nick Mullins is perfectly capable of still delivering a victory for the Vikings against Nathan Peterman. So I would take the Vikings here. Obviously, they have slight motivation to maybe improve their seeding. Obviously, that's dependent on what the 49ers do later in the day. But I would still venture to say that the Vikings, regardless of who's playing or where, would be able to win by a touchdown, especially when the Bears know they have a chance at the number 1 pick.
Yeah, I'm with you, Kyle. I'm also going to take the Vikings in this one. They're playing one of the worst defenses in football. I mean, this Bears defense is atrocious, and they're on a 9-game losing streak. So that alone gives me no confidence to take the Bears, especially with Nathan Peterman at quarterback. And then the Vikings are playing for a lot. Obviously, like we have mentioned, it's dependent on what the Niners do at the 2 seed right now. They do play before San Francisco, though. So I think they're going to take this game very seriously with the hope that some kind of miracle upset can happen in that game. And they can move up in the standings. And I think they do want to go into the playoffs with some kind of momentum coming off just probably their worst loss of the season to the Packers. I think they want to kind of right the ship. They want to get that out of fans' memories, go into the playoffs with some kind of positive momentum here. I think they're going to play their guys to get right for the playoffs. I think they're going to take this game more seriously than other people think. And like Kyle said, even if they pull Cousins, Jefferson, all those guys late in this game, I do still think they have enough talent to beat this Bears team by more than 6 points. So I'm going to take the Vikings to cover the 6-point spread on the road.
Yeah, I don't know if the person who set the spread, I mean, I know it's not a person, but, theoretically, the person who set this 6-point spread has ever watched Nathan Peterman play football, but I don't know where they got 6 points from. I mean, Nathan Peterman is horrible, and I know that the Vikings defense isn't good, but they don't even have the Justin Fields running threat. So I don't know who's playing. I don't know where these points are supposed to come from, but 100% taking the Vikings on the road. Not just because you can't get the number 1 seed doesn't mean that seeding is not still important. And I think it's much less important about who you're going to play in the playoffs. I don't think teams consider that as much, but just the idea that you get home field advantage more likely than not, at least until the NFC Championship game, that matters. I mean, if I have to face the 49ers, I would sure as heck rather do that in Minnesota than in San Francisco.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would like to make sure that I am at home as much as possible. And then on the off chance that the Eagles get knocked off by one of those teams, and you have home field advantage throughout for as many games as you win. So again, it does matter. It really does. So I think that's a little bit of an underrated importance factor for some people, just based on what I'm hearing and seeing. But Vikings cover -6. Fully agree with you guys there. All right. I think the largest spread of the day is a game that is going to decide the AFC North division. The Bengals are -9 at home against the Baltimore Ravens. I don't know how the Bengals are feeling. I'm sure that they're relatively emotionally charged as well, but obviously I think it's a little bit different for them. But there's no Lamar Jackson. So you look at the offense that the Bengals have. You look at the fact that their defense is playing pretty well. I think whether they cover is a different story, but the race for the division kind of seems a little bit over right now. You want to put Tyler Huntley head to head against Joe Burrow. I'm not sure how many people are going to take the black and purple, and I understand why, but still has playoff implications both in terms of seeding and ultimately the division, and in our picks race as well. So Kyle, who do you think is going to cover this spread?
Yeah, this is a really tough number because I've been going back and forth with this for a bit now, because I don't disagree that the Bengals are clearly the better team right now. And with Tyler Huntley, I don't know how they're going to score against a fairly good Bengals defense. That being said, it's a division game with a lot of with basically something at stake for the Ravens. So I'm inclined to take the Ravens +9 here. I understand all the Huntley I don't trust Huntley, but here then again, that's such a huge spread between two division teams, and there's playoff seeding and implications on the line. That's just too big for me to just to go the other way with. And then I'll also say this is usually the Ravens and Bengals has usually been one of those sides where the Ravens tend to find a way to play well against the Bengals. So I would just lean in that direction. Obviously, um, there are with no Lamar Jackson that changes things. Tyler Huntley hasn't been great, but again, it's just too big of a number for me to go with the Bengals, especially given all the implications that come with this game.
Yeah, I got the Bengals at -6.5 when this week spreads open, and I'm still going to take them at -9. I think the Bengals are going to take this game very seriously. They want to win this division. I think they are going to come out a little bit in an emotional like headspace to start this game because of the incident on Monday Night Football. So they might come out a little bit slow, but I just don't think this Ravens offense has the talents to keep up with what the Bengals have. I mean, the Bengals' third string wide receiver, whether you think that's Higgins or Boyd, whichever one you think it is better than the Ravens' number one wide receiver right now. Like that's how much like the wide receiver unit is favoring the Bengals right now. I think that their offense could put up, like when we were talking about with the Chiefs, we can see them being up 10-0 to start this game, and we wouldn't even be shocked. I think they're going to try and win this division pretty easily in this game. I think they're going to look at this game as very serious, and even like Tyler Huntley in this offense has been pretty much nothing since he took over. Like they have not been putting up points, and Tyler Huntley's coming in this game with a banged up shoulder, so even he's not 100% healthy. So you might, at some point in this game, you may see their third string quarterback, what is it, Brett Hundley in this game at some point if it gets too out of hand. So I think at that point, it's a pretty clear thing to me that the Bengals are going to come out and win this game. They have the better defense, in my opinion, all around. Like the Ravens don't give up a lot of points. They don't give up a lot of rushing yards. But that passing defense is a bit suspect in this game. I think the Bengals are looking at this as a more serious game. I think Joe Burrow wants to win this to win that division and get the possible chance of moving up to the 2 seed. Like they can still move up to the 2 seed as well. So I think they're going to look at this as very serious. I think they're going to come out and try and beat their divisional rival early. Like they're going to try and jump on them pretty early. So I'm going to take the Bengals to cover here.
Yeah, this is tough because while it's obvious that the offense favors the Bengals, and I guess the defense does a little bit, the difference in defense I don't think is so stark. And they are well coached in Baltimore as well. And I just don't expect them to come out and play flat. I'm going to take the Ravens to cover this just because 9 points in the division with a John Harbaugh led team. I just don't think that it's going to be a double-digit loss. I'm just putting a little bit of faith in them, and even I agree, Kyle. I don't trust Tyler Huntley per se. I also don't really mistrust him. We kind of know what he is. I don't think we get a huge variance in terms of, the play. We don't. It's not like he's had some solid play, at times, but he also hasn't like bottomed out. He's not like throwing horrendous interceptions. They just don't move the ball super well. So right now they've got J.K. Dobbins. They've got Mark Andrews. I mean, they've got these guys. So I think it's going to be kind of game plan specific, and I think that they're going to keep it close enough that it's not a 2-score game. And for that reason, I'll take the Ravens. 9 points it's big enough where I'm just going to take that side. All right. Another divisional matchup in the same division with playoff implications. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 2.5-point favorites at home over the Browns. if the Bills beat the Patriots and the Steelers beat the Browns, the Steelers will become the number 7 seed and make the playoffs after their incredibly slow start to the season, which is again just a testament to what Mike Tomlin can do. Probably none of us should be surprised. I think the only thing that surprises me is less about the Steelers building momentum down the stretch and more about some of the other AFC teams that looked really good at times in the season and just fell apart due to injury. And we'll talk about those teams shortly here in a minute. But what I think at this point they're favorites, and probably I assume that you guys think they're more likely to make the playoffs than not at this point. But do they cover by 2.5 points, or do you think the Browns win outright after their season that's just been all over the place, especially since Deshaun Watson has returned? Kyle?
No, we're riding the Mike Tomlin wave here. I think he's going to get this win. I think they're going to cover the 3 points. Oddly enough, I think this is the third week in a row I'm seeing the Steelers at a 2.5. So they've been able to cover that in multiple ways the past 2 weeks. I'm sure as hell going to take them again here. I think one of the things that's been kind of cool over these past 2 weeks is you've seen Kenny Pickett actually kind of make his figure out ways to win games, and that's huge for a rookie quarterback, especially with those late touchdown passes in the prior 2 games. So I think the fact that you now are seeing their offense kind of figure things out, what to do with Kenny Pickett, and then also the defense is as lights out as it's been all season right now. So especially against a Browns team that has nothing to play for, and against a Deshaun Watson who's still rusty and I'm not anticipating a very good game from him. I'm more than happy to take the Steelers as a 2.5 point home favorite.
Yeah, I'm with you, Kyle. I'm also taking the Steelers to cover here. You're asking that defense to beat up on this Deshaun Watson-led offense, who Deshaun finally had his somewhat good his first somewhat good game against Washington last week, where he threw for 3 touchdowns and had no interceptions. But even then, didn't throw it a ton in that game. And before that one, he was really, really bad so far this season. Going against the Steelers defense, which when it has TJ Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick, like we always keep saying, those two on the field together, that defense performs at such a high level, even if there are other injuries around them. The defense alone is why I'm taking the Steelers. But then you throw in the fact that all you're asking is the Steelers team, who I think most people have winning this game, to win by a field goal, and they've been really, really good at late game-winning drives. I don't know if it's going to come down to that again, but I think Kenny Pickett and this offense is going to do just enough to build a 3+ point lead, and that defense is going to hold it down for them. And then I don't know what it is about Kenny Pickett. He doesn't do anything overly special, but this team just plays better with him. He's one of those quarterbacks where you can't really point at one thing he does well and like, oh, that's why this team is playing well. The team just plays harder with him. I think they're going to do the same thing with this one. They're playing for their playoff lives. They're going to take it very seriously at home. All these signs are pointing towards the Steelers coming away with a win, and you're only asking them to win by a field goal. So I'm going to take the Steelers to cover here.
Yeah, I mean, easily. These 2.5 point spreads are basically Vegas saying, we think you're going to win. We don't really know how, but track record says you're just going to win by at least a couple of points. And true to form, they keep doing it, and I expect them to do it now too with the playoffs on the line. They won't know what the Patriots' status is while they're playing. So as far as they're concerned, they will be playing to get in. And I think they'll do it. I think the defense will make the Browns have a rough day. They play the run very well in Pittsburgh. So that's not really going to be an easy strength for the Browns. Jadeveon Clowney's not playing in this game after, basically, I don't even know what drama it is now. Basically, apparently they don't believe in him. So I'm not really sure what that means. They signed you, so obviously they believe in you at least a little bit. Whatever. I haven't done any research, so I probably shouldn't talk anything about it. But yeah, Steelers cover playoffs. Tomlin's over 500 again. Tomlin's back in the playoffs again, and the Steelers work on that offensive line a little bit, and they'll probably be quite good again next year. All right. This is a game. Okay. The Indianapolis Colts are favored by 2.5 at home against the Houston Texans. At this point, the Colts are actively tanking, and
Mm-hmm.
the Texans' little run of, oh, we're gonna play you hard and still lose. That is going to be called into question this week because they are also in reality tanking at this point. Bryce Young is on the line. If if the Chicago Bears lose and the Texans win this game, Chicago jumps into the number one pick. And although we have no expectation for them to select Bryce Young, it does either force the Texans to trade up um, or possibly robs them of the opportunity to get him if the Bears are willing to trade back for a nice little haul of picks. And as far as I'm concerned, there are enough good players in this draft that you 100% take that trade back package
Mm-hmm.
that somebody will give you for Bryce Young, and you build your roster with some quantity, because you can still get a good player up high, but you need a lot if you're the Bears. And I know you got money to spend, but you need a lot of players out of the draft if you want to turn this thing around. So, I mean, that's interesting. There are teams that I think would be willing to make a substantial offer to get up, even from, you know, not a specific team, but like even as high as 12. If we're talking about getting Bryce Young, teams will make that move. The Colts might be one of them, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a fair amount on the line, and the Colts, they do need a quarterback, and that is why they are tanking right now. And so they don't want to win either. I mean, the players, they want to win. They don't care about whatever. A lot of them won't even be on the team next year. But you know, uh, this is these are two teams that genuinely do want a quarterback, and one is on the line. I mean, this is a situation where a Texans kind of meaningless win right now could rob them of that, just in the same way that the Jets' meaningless win late in the season in 2020 robbed them of the opportunity to get Trevor Lawrence. So I think people say, yeah, of course you want to win, and then I'm like, yeah, but when you know the guy is there at number one, maybe it's not worth it to win. So this is the Tank Bowl, and I'm curious to see how you guys think that it plays out.
Yeah. Yeah, this is definitely a game of who can tank better. I will say this: if Nick Foles was playing, I totally would take the Texans to win this game. That being said, Sam Ellinger's playing, and I think the Colts are going to cover this 3-point spread as much as they're going to try to try to solidify a top 5 pick. Even if they win, they may not. They may still end up with a top 5 pick. It just depends on what happens with the Rams later on Sunday. But I just think the fact is, in terms of like if we're guessing who's going to try to be worse, the Texans are going to try to be worse. Like they're already doing the thing where they're splitting time between Davis Mills and Jeff Driscoll. Like seriously, that's a legitimate strategy, and it actually won them a game. That's the more hilarious part. So I just think right now, unless the Colts just pull everybody for Sunday's game, I just think the Colts are, even if they're trying to lose, they do have more positional value across the field, especially on defense. And so I think that's probably going to be the reason why they somehow come away with a 3-point win.
Yeah, this was one of the hardest games for me to pick for. I'm also going to take the Colts to cover here for a lot of the same reasons Kyle said. I think you guys have both mentioned it. The Texans are actively trying to get the number one overall pick. Even though I think in reality, even if they get the second pick, they can still get one of the top two quarterbacks. I don't think they'll be angry with either Young or Stroud, but I do think they want Bryce Young more. I think they're looking at this as the clear opportunity to tank, get another loss, get the number one overall pick. It's just going to be so tough that you never know who comes into this game wanting to play for more. You got both Davis Mills and Sam Ellinger. Davis Mills might look at this as like his last chance to show teams he can start in this league, and someone might want to take a chance on him. So he may play harder than people think. It's going to be fascinating to watch happen. I do think the Colts are just the slightly better football team. I think the Texans are better at tanking at this point in the season. So I do think the Colts are going to somehow find a way to score 3 more points than the Texans in this one and cover at home.
I think there's probably a little bit more pride on that Indianapolis sideline, whether it be Jeff Saturday, whether it be the veterans who are there. I mean, a lot of these guys have played in big games. I mean, Stephon Gilmore, is DeForest Buckner playing?
Again, up in the air. He could be playing. I would imagine he would want to play, but again,
I mean, these guys have played in big games. They have pride. This Texans team is so when you look at a team, you know that there are guys who are Colts or guys who are Texans. And even if at some point they are on another roster, like right now, they are like representative of that team, right? I mean, you've got Jonathan Taylor, you've got DeForest Buckner, you've got like these stars who have been, or Shaq Leonard, or whoever. There's a bunch of these guys, and or Quentin Nelson, guys that are Colts. You look at this Texans team; they don't have that right now.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have not even one. I mean, I guess Dameon Pierce would be it that I can think. I mean, Derek Stingley. These guys are rookies. They've been there for less than a season. A lot of them are banged up. I think Derek Stingley's on IR. So like guys that are even guys that represent the Texans, outwardly, they're just not there. I mean, their whole roster are rookies and 1-year contracts. Laramie Tunsil is like their single highest paid player by, I think, a wide margin. Brandon Cooks is the other one, and he's been a journeyman forever. So it's like, it's just, I'm just not sure what the team is playing for, other than putting personal tape out there for their job advancement. So it's just like there's just a little bit more in Indianapolis. So even though it's hard to choose which team I think will be tanking harder, I think when you just look at the Colts, they just have a little bit more personal relationships within the locker room, I would imagine. And I'm not like saying the Texans don't have a brotherhood too. It's just like these guys have played together longer. They've known each other. You know what I mean? I don't think anybody wants to go out there and just look like crap. You know what I mean? For everybody involved. So I'll take the Colts. That's just my long-winded way of saying the Texans will probably end up with the number 1 overall pick, which I think is the smart play. And I don't know who will be there to make the pick, what coach will be there, or whatever, but ultimately they will probably end up having it. All right. Miami Dolphins are -3.5 point favorites against the New York Jets. Last week, it was disappointing. The Jets got knocked out of the playoffs by the Seahawks. We talked about it in the show that he was going to be in pain. We even mentioned it. The pain clearly affected his accuracy. The accuracy was that's a trademark feature of Mike White, and it's one of the reasons that he was favored over Zach Wilson by the players. Aside from the decision making, the accuracy wasn't there. It was the least accurate I've ever seen Mike White by a wide margin. So you could just tell that his injury was bothering him, and even though he was medically cleared to play, it strongly impacted his game. And now he is been ruled out, so he cannot even play. I assume it was aggravated a little bit, which is probably no surprise, rib injury. So that means we're back to Joe Flacco. We're full circle back to Joe Flacco. We have gone Joe Flacco, Zach Wilson, Mike White, Zach Wilson, Mike White, now Joe Flacco again. So there's a pattern in there somewhere. Conversely, the Miami Dolphins are without both Tua Tagovailoa and Teddy Bridgewater, which means they are starting Skylar Thompson. And if there was ever a way to give the Jets a victory, it is having Skylar Thompson be the one to throw to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Now, the Dolphins, I think I'm making an assumption here. I think I made a little bit of an assumption with the Steelers and the Patriots. That would be that the Dolphins don't win this game. Even though they are favored by -3.5, I still think it is very realistic that the Jets could beat them. So I got a little ahead of myself. But again, after seeing Skylar Thompson play against the Jets and the Jets winning by 40 with Zach Wilson, and yeah, I know they had Breece Hall back then, but you know, uh, this defense still has all its guys, and they still have pride too. So, I mean, I understand it's at home and whatnot, but yeah, Dolphins have playoffs on the line as well. So if the Patriots lose and the Dolphins win, they technically would get in over the Steelers. But I guess we have to see what you guys think about that. The Jets, full defensive array of players is available. All of their offensive players are available as far as skill groups. Their offensive line is missing both tackles, and we have the immobile Joe Flacco, who can still sling it. We've seen it against the Browns earlier this year, but if the Dolphins get any kind of pass rush, he can't move. So this is going to be an ugly game. I promise you that. I promise you. But who ends up winning, and if it's the Dolphins, do they cover?
I'm taking the Jets plus 3.5 here. I'm not trusting Skylar Thompson at all. I much like you mentioned, Max. I saw that and it did not go well. It was, I knew it was going to be bad the second they said on the broadcast last week that he was coming in, like Teddy Bridgewater couldn't grab the football. I jumped on the Patriots money line immediately, assuming that the Patriots were going to win no matter what. And eventually that is what happened. So I just don't. There's nothing I've seen from Skylar Thompson that suggests he can cover a 3.5 point spread and win a game by 4 points. And if the Jets are going to go out there and play their hearts with the pride, they're gonna win this game. It's at least in my mind. I think the Jets defense is gonna, even if the offense can't pick it up, that Jets defense is going to make Skylar Thompson's life a living hell again. And there's a good chance turnovers can occur with a young rookie quarterback that's making his second ever start, especially against this Jets defense. So I could see short fields happening. I could see field goals being kicked by the Jets if in those short field goal opportunities. And at some point, it's just going to accumulate to them being able to at least cover and more than likely win.
Yeah, I'm also going to take the Jets to cover here. I have to, in a game like this, you have to kind of ask yourself, can you see Skylar Thompson moving the ball and scoring points against this Jets defense? And can you see Joe Flacco moving the ball and scoring points against this Dolphins defense? I can see the latter happening far more often than the former. I think that the Dolphins defense, it's been not great over there. Last like 5 games, they're on a 5-game losing streak, which also doesn't help. But they've given up at least 23 points in every game so far during that streak. And I think that this Jets defense, like you said, Max, it's still going to play with a lot of pride. It's still got all their guys. Skylar Thompson's in this game. I don't trust him throwing in Sauce Gardner and all those guys. So the Jets offensive line situation with 2 tackles out with Joe Flacco and at quarterback does scare me a little bit. But Joe Flacco can sling it. We saw it early in the year, like you mentioned. He's still got a big arm. I think he can still move the ball against this Dolphins defense. And I think that they're going to be playing with a lot of pride. I think they want to play spoiler a little bit in this game. I think they want to beat the Dolphins in their home stadium to knock them out of the playoffs. So I can see the Dolphins maybe possibly squeaking out a 1 or 2 point win. Beating the Jets by 4 points with Skylar Thompson's not doable, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm worried about the blitz because I think that the Jets are going to have a hard time picking up the blitz, and the Dolphins love to blitz. So I'm a little bit nervous about that. I'm a little bit nervous about watching 5 or 6 guys just gang tackle Joe Flacco. So I mean, I guess if there's always a chance that Joe Flacco even gets knocked out of this game, but then Zach Wilson comes in, and I think just due to running ability, like it won't matter. Like the passing offense will deteriorate, but the rushing offense will probably get better just because of scrambling ability. So I don't know. I mean, it really just comes down to some faith in the Jets defense. And yes, they are throwing to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and they have Raheem Mostert, and um, even Mike Gesicki might be able to do some damage. But I think the Jets want to play spoiler. I think the coaching staff really needs a W here. If they are able to knock the Dolphins out of the playoffs and show up, it's proof that at least on some level that the coach and coaches should be there. And I think that matters. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of talk in New York after the way that they kind of fell apart. And even though there's a bunch of young players there that are probably kind of disappointed, I think they show up for one more game. And Jets have been pretty good about covering, so I'll roll with them as well. The thing that really does just scare me is the blitz. And if we come back next week and the Jets lost this game, I promise you that their offensive line was just getting overwhelmed, poor communication, and Joe Flacco just got the crap kicked out of him. If they win, that is how it happened, because otherwise they're not a good enough defense to just stop the Jets skill players outright, especially in the passing game. They can move the ball that way. Garrett Wilson officially over 1,000 yards on the season. If he wants to be the leading receiver for all rookie receivers, he's going to have to put up some yards this week. So that's enough on the Jets. The Dolphins, I would say that they probably missed the playoffs again. So that would be a disappointing year. And then they've got to figure out what's going on with Tua Tagovailoa's health and where they stand with him. But all right. New Orleans Saints hosting the Carolina Panthers, a game that means literally nothing except for draft position. The Panthers are playing pretty well right now with Steve Wilkes. I'm kind of surprised that they are underdogs. It's only because the Saints are home, I would imagine. It's essentially pick 'em otherwise. Saints didn't play badly last week, but there's a little more variance. The Panthers have been kind of stabilized since Matt Rule is gone. So I don't know. I could definitely see them covering, although Saints, Saints still have a good defense. I mean, it just doesn't mean anything except for draft position. And the Saints, they don't even care that much, frankly, about draft position because they don't even have a first round pick. So the Panthers are the team here that would be in like that semi-tank mode where this game actually a loss for this means more for them. But at the same time, Steve Wilkes is probably coaching for an opportunity either here or elsewhere to get back, as a non-interim head coach and a full-time head coach, which, he probably warrants at least some real consideration for. So this is kind of a weird one where certain teams have different, things pulling them in different directions. Saints, I assume that they just want to win this game because, again, it doesn't impact their draft position. And if they want to maintain their coaching staff, this is probably an important way to do it.
Yeah, this much to what you said, Max. This is one of those games where I'm actually inclined to take the Saints just for the pure fact that you mentioned they don't have a draft pick, so it doesn't make a difference for them to go out there and try. And this thought will come up in a later game again. So, but I have my thing sitting on the Panthers plus 3.5. Actually, I'm still going back and forth with this. This is probably my least comfortable game just because, again, the Panthers, if they win, would jump all the way out of the top 10 in terms of draft position. So it would not benefit them at all to win this game. And so as I'm probably going to move off of my Panthers plus 3.5 and just go Saints -3 right now. I just think the Saints, it means so much. It means so much for the Panthers to lose this game to have that top 10 pick. So that I think they'll do the shenanigans and do what they have to do to lose this game and pull guys out that need to be pulled out to ensure they lose the game. Again, not feeling comfortable either way. I'm just leaning on that one level of motivation to take the Saints -3 here.
Yeah, I'm also not terribly comfortable taking either team in this game. I am going to take the Panthers to cover here. I also got them at the +3.5. Even if the Saints do win, I think the Panthers compete enough to make it a close game. One of the other guys in this game that we haven't mentioned who could be playing for their future career in this league is Sam Darnold. I think he has performed well enough as a Panthers quarterback to maybe get an audition somewhere else as a bridge type quarterback. He goes into this, what Mitchell Trubisky was for the Steelers this year, where he comes in, starts in front of a rookie quarterback until that guy's ready. I think this is a chance for Sam to do the same thing, perform well enough to audition to some team that he can still play in this league and he can still be either your starting quarterback or a very good backup for you. So I think he's going to play hard. I think a lot of these Panthers are really like upset about how this season went. They fought all the way back to make a chance for the playoffs. And I think they want to go off on the season on a high note, even if they don't win. I do think they want to keep this competitive. I think they want to make it a close game. And with all honesty, I think the Panthers' top priority in this draft will probably be a quarterback. And once you get out of CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, you don't have to be in the top 10, I don't think, to get the next best quarterback. So I don't think they're too worried about draft position in this game. I think they want to go out, they want to play hard. They want to at least make this game competitive against a division foe. And even if the Saints win, I don't see them winning by more than 3 points. So I'm going to take the Panthers to cover here.
I'm going to take the Saints as well. When we looked at, we did the full quarterback carousel, Max Chadwick, Nick Merriam, and I, we went through every single team on Thursday, and we decided which quarterback we think fit the best, whether it was trade, free agency, or draft. And we ended up having the Panthers, Carolina Panthers, retain Sam Darnold as their bridge quarterback because he's kind of a known quantity there, a known commodity, and also draft Will Levis. Bryson, I do believe that you will need to be in the top 10 to pick the third quarterback, Will Levis. But you can always trade up if you need to. You can get into the top 10 to take a quarterback. That's not out of the realm of possibility. And I think an aggressive team who needs a quarterback will probably do that. But I think it makes a lot of sense to have somebody in your back pocket, prior to the draft. And Sam Darnold has kind of made a case for why that he should probably be that guy for them. I do think that there's probably a little bit of come back down to earth for the Panthers after not making the playoffs. It means a little bit less for them. I'm just going to lean towards the Saints at home. It's still a fairly challenging place to play. The Saints still have a fair amount of talent. 3 points. Could it be a push? Yeah, it could be a push. Could the Panthers cover by making it a 1 or 2 point game? Yeah, I'll take the Saints though, and just trust the fact that I believe that the owner is tired of not having his quarterback, and I think that is going to be in the mind of everybody involved here. So I know Steve Wilkes, while he does want to coach for his job, he also may realize that if he frustrates the owner by not putting them in position to draft a quarterback, this might be his best opportunity for a job, better than anywhere else out there. So I don't know. There's a lot of kind of flux. They already have the GM in place, so if they have a good relationship between the interim head coach and GM, this might be one of those rare instances where the interim is actually kept there. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But long story short, I'm going to pick the Saints -3 here, and I guess I'm going to trust the veteran nature of that team to pull one more win out. All right. San Francisco 49ers are hosting the Arizona Cardinals at home. San Francisco 49ers are very hot. They are playing for a chance to get the number 1 seed, I believe. If the Eagles lose and they win, they can get the number 1 seed. And they also need to at least win to probably maintain the number 2 seed. Arizona Cardinals are 14 here. So I think we can all assume that this is not going to be a close game. Is it going to be a 14 plus point blowout, though, is the real question. Kyle?
Yeah, this is now we're getting into the games where it's kind of interesting where you're playing at the same time and you can scoreboard watch what's going on as you're playing the game. This is one of those games where um I, I feel like the 49ers are going to be definitely going for the win, but depending on what happens with the obviously the Eagles and the Cowboys game will be going on at the same time. And then they'll obviously know what's going on with the Vikings beforehand. So I'm inclined to take the Cardinals plus 14. It's more or less that's just a lot of points and I could see the 49ers jumping out to a lead and pulling their guys. And I still think their backups would be more than capable of maintaining if they got it out to a 2 touchdown lead, maintaining it. I just think that's just too much points with the ever shifting variables that could be that are going on right now, especially with the 49ers.
I think I'm going to take the 49ers here to cover home. I know 14 points is a ton of points, and I'm not the biggest fan of taking these massive spreads, but they're going to be playing for a lot. I think, we all took the Vikings earlier in this, for the early game to win that one. So they're going to want to win this game to not move down to the 3 seed. So even if they watch the Eagles are killing the Giants and they don't have a shot at the 1 seed, I do still think they're going to keep their starters in enough in this game to secure a win because they don't want to move down to the 2 seed. Now, obviously, this is the Cardinals with their third string quarterback, David Bloughen. They're injured in every important part of this team. They've got nothing to play for. So should the Niners win this game outright pretty easily? Yeah, they should. I think they're going to come out angry that they almost lost to Jarrett Stidham a week ago. They let Jarrett Stidham just throw the ball all over them. Last week, I think they're going to be pissed off. I think they're going to be playing this game hard. They want to win, whether it is to move up to the 1 seed or stay at the 2 seed. So I think I don't know how the Cardinals are going to score against this defense, whether it's the starters or the backups. There's nothing in my mind that says the Cardinals can put up enough points to stay in this game. So I'm going to take the Niners to cover the 14-point spread here, even though I don't love taking these massive spreads.
Yeah, okay. Got a couple of comments in the chat here that I've been kind of lost and not paying close attention to, but percent chances trade Saints trade Jameis this offseason. I don't think they can. Maybe
Wasn't
they
he on a
can,
1 year
but
deal?
no, he's on a
Or
2-year
is it a
deal,
2 year deal?
but it's like their cap situation is so tough that any dead money is like pretty challenging for them. So I think they've got to double down on some of those guys. Combination of Joe Flacco and Chris Streveler. That very well could be. They could have Streveler in for for some running packages, which might help the running game. They kind of did that before. And fired or safe Mike McDaniel, he's safe. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think the Tua Tagovailoa situation was a tough spot. So just to respond to some of those.
If he gets
I'm
fired,
I'm not sure he's safe. That Miami franchise does some weird things, man.
if he gets
Really?
fired, I implore the Broncos to jump on him as soon as he hits the markets.
He'd immediately become the hottest commodity on the
Oh yeah,
market.
he'd be gone the next day.
Yeah, if the Dolphins do it, I'm not. Just me personally, Miami's done some things this year that I'm just like, really, that I could see it happening. I don't think they'll do it, but I wouldn't also be shocked if they did it.
Oh man, that would be wild. That would be, I think, a huge mistake. I think that the issues that Mike McDaniel's had at this point are really like normal, justifiable rookie head coaching type things. I don't think he's done anything horrendous. I think the defense has been bad. And considering the amount of star players they have, they should probably consider getting a new defensive coordinator. And I don't I'm actually kind of lower on Chris Greer than a lot of guys. I don't love the way that they've handled their team building process. So I mean, I could see him moving, but for Mike McDaniel to go, they would. I mean, he would be the first coach hired 100% in the cycle. I don't know where he would go, but yeah, that
I
would be pretty crazy. I mean,
I just think that because it like Steven Ross has done some really weird things over the past year where it's not out of the question for me, which is a crazy thing to think about.
yeah, if he goes, then Greer goes too, and they just clean house. It just doesn't make sense for the amount of investment that they have. I would say there is a 15% chance that Mike McDaniel gets fired if we're talking about that. And then the other one, Kingsbury is getting fired after tomorrow. The thing about that is that they are committed financially to Kyler Murray. Yes, they're committed financially to Kingsbury too, but you can walk away from that more justifiably. Murray is there. And I don't know what offense Kyler Murray runs if not Cliff Kingsbury. I mean, if you get rid of Kingsbury, the only realistic option is to go out and find a guy who runs the same spread offense basically that he does, but is just a different coach. And then you're looking at college again. So it's like, I think you've got to ride this out one more year. I think you need to find somebody to be the GM because I don't know what's going on with Steve Keim health wise. So if he's not there, you definitely need someone to come in and be it. And maybe you get somebody to come in and be like the de facto GM for a while too. I just don't. I don't think it makes sense for Kingsbury to go, and not because he's earned himself anything, but just because of how invested financially you are to like this version of the Cardinals. I'm not sure what changes. I mean, look, if you can convince Sean Payton to come in and coach Kyler Murray, which I guess could be enticing, even though it's not even remotely the style of quarterback that he's played with so far. Maybe you do that, but you would have to have an inkling that that's the kind of coach you would be able to get your hands on, or if Miami did something insane like fire Mike McDaniel, then you go hard after him because I think it's again schematically it doesn't necessarily make sense for Murray, but like that's the caliber of coach that you would kind of need to be able to go after if you wanted to kind of tear everything up like that.
The other thing is Kyler got hurt so late this season that
Mhm.
you won't even know when he's going to be healthy and when he would really be back at 100%. So it's almost like you fire Cliff, the new coach might end up with a basically a no countsies year if you fire Cliff. So that's kind of the other odd part with him getting hurt so late in the season.
Yeah. Yeah, and Amen report he says Shane Steichen would be his choice to replace Cliff Kingsbury. I hear you. I think though Shane Steichen is probably in a position where he can go get a little bit more of an appealing head coaching job. I mean Sean Payton could too, but it's just like I think it's like if you are the Arizona Cardinals and you fire Cliff Kingsbury and you go out and you interview Shane Steichen, he's probably going to end up in a place with a little bit more stability than the Cardinals. I think it makes sense because of what they've done with the running game with the quarterback running game in Philly, but at the same time, I think as a first-time head coach who doesn't have the cachet of a guy like Sean Payton, you have to be really careful. You have to be really careful about where you go because you don't get a second head coaching job very often, and so you don't necessarily want to put yourself in the position of taking an ultra challenging spot. So I hear you. I think, that does make sense. But at the same time, they don't have the offensive line that they do in Philly. They don't have the skill players that they have in Philly. Kyler Murray wouldn't even be there to run that quarterback run game for a while. So what we said on Thursday was keep Cliff for at least one more year and then go get Baker Mayfield as like the backup slash early season starter because he came out of that offense too. Baker desperately needs an opportunity to start, and this is the only chance he'll get it because nobody else is going to want to deal with this crap. Because you have a solidified starter in Kyler Murray, but you still give Baker a chance to play for at least a few weeks. Bring in Heineke as the backup. I don't think. I mean, Heineke can run, but he can't run like that. I mean, you make a case for it. I can't dismiss it outright. But again, if I was Shane Steichen, I wouldn't be touching the Cardinals with a 10-foot pole. That's my opinion. But back to the 49ers here. Look, I think that an experienced playoff head coach like Kyle Shanahan knows how important momentum is going into the playoffs. I think he knows that he needs to blow this team out to maintain the energy that they currently have. To whimper in a little bit, not that really anything about the 49ers whimpers, but if they pull their starters and then it gets down to like a close game and then they just get in by 7 points or whatever. I don't think that carries the momentum that the 49ers have had over the majority of the season, especially after their close win last week. So I think they play hard. I think with David Blau under center, this is probably currently the best week 18 team in the NFL versus the worst week 18 team in the NFL. Even though they don't have the number 1 overall pick, they're probably worse than the Texans today, right now. So I'm going to pick the 49ers to cover this game. 14 points. They could win it by 20 even, I think. There's always wild card plays in there where, Marquise Brown takes it to the house or, Rondale Moore. I don't even know who's healthy for them at this point. I'm just throwing names out there, but I do think that the 49ers will cover this game. All right. We're getting close. The Seahawks have a chance to make the playoffs with a win and a Packers loss. They are 6-point favorites at home versus the Los Angeles Rams and Baker Mayfield. So Baker obviously is trying to play well to get himself an opportunity in the future. He hasn't given up on his hopes to start somewhere. The Seahawks are clearly the better team. I think they had a good game plan versus the Jets. I think they'll probably have a good game plan versus the Rams. They're division rivals, so they've known each other for a long time. I tend to think the Seahawks do win this game, but is it a full 6-point cover, or do they win by 3, 4? What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, I have the Rams +6 here. I do think there's an opportunity for Seattle to win. However, the Rams traded their draft pick. So again, there's motivation for them to go out there, especially for Baker to kind of solidify and continue to prove that he can still be a starting quarterback here. I haven't seen any reports that McVay is going to be sitting guys. So at this rate, if the Rams basically were, I think it was a 4-point game with John Wolford as quarterback against these Seahawks. And again, that was in Los Angeles. But again, the Rams do have a strategy, do have a good defense still. They're performing well outside of I know they got blitzed by the Chargers last week. But I would still think that they would at least keep this competitive, and I think they would love nothing more than to try to keep the Seahawks out of here, especially when they know that a loss isn't going to give them any draft pick position or anything like that. So I think the motivation, the fact that they don't have a draft pick, they know that that everybody's kind of expecting them to roll over and let Seattle get into the playoffs. I think they're going to at least give this their honest effort and really try to take Seattle out. So I'll go with the Rams +6. I wouldn't be shocked if Seattle won, though.
Yeah, this was a tough game for me. I was going back and forth with both of these because the Seahawks are playing for their playoff lives. I was riding with the Seahawks for the most part, but I'm gonna switch to the Rams in large part because I think there's too many players on this Rams team playing for their careers. Baker Mayfield's not the only one. He's obviously like the big name, the one everyone's going to talk about, trying to play his way into a starting role next year. But then there's also Cam Akers is playing for a chance to start somewhere, whether it's in LA or somewhere else. He's had his best weeks of the season, back-to-back games, over 120 yards in both, or 115 yards in both games. And he's going against the Seattle defense, which is terrible against the run. So that could be a way you could see the Rams early on. They've really run the ball well, open up that play action game for Baker and make this game a lot closer than people think. I don't know if I see the Rams winning this game because Seattle, like I said, is playing for their playoff lives. I think they're playing for more big picture stuff than the Rams are. But I do think the Rams are going to be competitive. It is a division game. They tend to be closer than a lot of people think, even in situations like this. And if you just have a few guys on the underdog team looking at this as a chance to play spoiler or audition for themselves for other teams, you could see guys over performing and playing at a level you weren't expecting. So I think the Rams are going to find a way to keep this close. I do think Seattle pulls it off in the end, but they're going to keep it within a touchdown.
Yeah. I think you guys made a great case for the Rams. I'm going to take them to cover as well, and then that always leaves the option that they truly do play spoiler and surprise and end up winning the game. Kind of covered from both angles there. Eamon Report said Baker should stay in LA where Stafford is injury prone. Yeah, I think if he doesn't get an opportunity like the Cardinals where he's guaranteed to start at least a percentage of the games in the beginning of the year, if he doesn't have an opportunity like that, it is a good spot for him. I think, he's played well under the McVay system, and it's familiar to him, even though it's not necessarily like the same direct tree. It's not different from what they were doing under Stefanski in Cleveland, so he has a familiarity with the style of offense. So it fits. It fits pretty well, and it's really just about if he gets a better opportunity elsewhere. All right, the Denver Broncos are favorites at home for the first time in about half the year against the Los Angeles Chargers by 3 points. I assume that's because the Chargers are resting guys. I haven't looked into this. You're gonna have to tell me if that's accurate. They can't move up or down, can they?
They can
oh,
move.
can.
They can
move down with the.
They can move down with the loss.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. I guess, are they actively resting guys? Is that out there?
No news on that. I haven't seen any reports. It sounds more like they are going to play guys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I don't know what's going on with this. I guess we should just jump on the Chargers +3 here. Is this a mistake? Does Vegas know something we don't know?
Yeah. I'll go ahead and take it. Yeah, take the Chargers +3. Heck, take the Chargers money line in this scenario. If you're asking me what the Chargers want to do, they want to keep the 5 seed because that means they're either playing the Jaguars or the Titans. I would prefer that over falling back and ending up with a matchup against the Bills or Bengals, depending on what happened, or even the Chiefs, for that matter of fact. So take the Chargers +3 here. I haven't seen any reports that the Chargers are going to be sitting guys or doing any of that stuff. You want the 5 seed in this scenario, just to ensure the fact that you're going to get the best matchup possible out of the teams that have to play during Wild Card weekend. At least in my opinion.
The only thing is that they do play after the Ravens and Bengals.
Right.
So if the Bengals win that game, they will already know.
Yeah.
Even then.
Yeah.
Even then,
but But I'm just saying, like, I think that the implication is that Vegas is so confident that the Bengals win that game that they expect the Chargers to end up
Right.
deciding to sit some of their guys, which wouldn't surprise me. They've been pretty banged up.
Yeah.
So this is one where I absolutely reserve the right to change my pick. You know what I mean? At
Yeah.
some point. But even so, like that Broncos offense has been so bad. It would really be the defense against, I guess, against the Chargers backups, at least some of them. So that would be interesting. But I just wanted to throw that out there. But
Oh
Kyle, you can
yeah.
finish your
No,
thought.
I'd still take it. I just think it again it then fall into a situation. I was like, do you think they're gonna sit how long you think they're gonna sit guys? Do you think they're gonna have guys go through the motions and play for a bit and then pull them out? I would still take the Chargers +3. Um I know the Broncos probably have motivation since they don't have a pick, a first round pick in this upcoming draft to win the game. I just would still take the Chargers in this retrospect.
Yeah, I'm on the Chargers too, but one of the things I was going to mention was the fact that they do play after the Bengals and Ravens game. So if you see them with the Bengals win, they may look at this as an opportunity to rest a lot of their guys. If the Bengals win this game, I would expect players like Herbert, Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler, Joey Bosa. I would expect a lot of their big name guys to at most play a half. Like that's what my expectation would be for that, because these Chargers are an injury prone team, and the last thing this team wants is for in a meaningless game, because they already got that spot locked up if the Bengals win, for Justin Herbert to go out there and he re-aggravates those ribs, or Austin Eckler gets injured or something. That's the last thing they want in this game. So my guess is the Chargers only play a half with their starters, and then you're looking at the Broncos starters who are looking to go into this offseason with some kind of positive note, some kind of momentum, and Russell Wilson looking to have some kind of decent performance in front of the home crowd for the last time this season. I think that is one way the Vegas thinks the Broncos could come out ahead in this one. I do think the Chargers. I'm going to take the Chargers to cover, even if they don't win. I don't think the Broncos offense is going to be good enough to beat them by more than 3 points. So I'm going to take the Chargers to cover here, but that's going to be another game, like Max said, where you may want to wait until the very last minute to fully take your pick.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Chargers as well here, and that's mostly because there's no reason that they should be underdogs in any way, shape, or form until we know for certain that multiple starters are not playing. But I mean, hey, if you take them as the underdog now too, then there's always the opportunity to keep them as the underdog if we find out that the Ravens win and then they need to play this game to secure that number 5 seed. So keep that in your back pocket. All right, we move to the third to last game today. We have the Philadelphia Eagles as -14 favorites at home against the New York Giants. Again, do we have word that the Giants are resting players in this game? Because the Giants are locked in to the number 6 spot. So even if they lose this game, they can't move up, they can't move down, nothing. So are they resting guys in preparation for the playoffs? Because that would dictate whether I am even remotely comfortable with a spread this large or not.
I believe I read that Dayball said he's going to play his guys for a certain amount of time. How long was not determined. Um, so it could be one series and then he pulls the guys, or it could be a quarter or a half. I have not seen it either way yet, but I know he has indicated they are going to play guys just to keep them in the rhythm of things.
According to a CBS Sports report from Jeff Kerr, Giants are expected to rest starters against the Eagles.
Okay.
So, or this is an article from him, the report, it may be from somebody else. So yes, it looks like they will be resting guys. I don't know. I mean, and the Eagles, they need this game. They need to win this game to keep the number 1 seed. So that being said, 14 points is still a lot, but at least that justifies the spread at the very least. But I'll let you go ahead and pick it with that information, Kyle.
Yeah, I was debating back and forth, even if the starters were going to play for the Giants, because again, this isn't really a very good matchup for the Giants. Especially if Jalen Hurts is going to be walking back onto that field to ensure that the Eagles win. I'll go ahead and take the Eagles minus 14. Now that the recent report suggests that Daboll's going to be resting key starters. So I'll take Eagles minus 14. I could have seen the Eagles covering. Even I was debating whether or not to take the Eagles even if the Stars are playing, because they know they have the Giants number. This is a good matchup for them, and they know that. So now that I know the Stars aren't playing, I'll go ahead and take the Eagles minus 14.
Yeah, I'm also going to take the Eagles minus 14. I was back and forth on this one because you never know who's going to play, who's not going to play in this game. And again, not a big fan of taking these massive 2-touchdown spreads, but the Eagles need this win to keep their number 1 seed and win the division. They need this win for momentum going into the playoffs and to give Jalen Hurts that extra week of rest. Because even if Jalen Hurts goes into this game, he's not going to be 100%. So they're going to want to win to give him that extra week of rest for his shoulder before the playoffs actually start for them. The Giants will be resting a lot of their guys, like we mentioned. Now, with that said, Tyrod Taylor is going to most likely be starting this game. He's a quality enough quarterback where he can surprise some people and keep the Giants closer in this game than most people think. But I think the Eagles are just going to be taking this game a little bit more seriously. They're going to look to win this game pretty heavily to ensure their spot as the number 1 seed. And if Jalen Hurts is in there for them, it's not even going to be close, in my opinion. So I'm going to take the Eagles to cover the 14-point spread at home.
I will for now. I think the difference is not necessarily from Daniel Jones to Tyrod Taylor. It's more about the difference from Saquon Barkley to not Saquon Barkley in terms of their ability to score points. And defensively, I think even just if they're well coached, but they're precariously not super deep. So a few guys not playing due to rest will make a big difference. I mean, AJ Brown could score 14 points in this game alone, and then just the rest of the team does their thing. So also, if we find out Jalen Hurts isn't going to play tomorrow because he's currently questionable, that might swing me away from a 14-point spread too. But at least for now, I'll take the Eagles, assuming Hurts plays and the Giants are set to rest guys. Because even if they start just for like the preparation purposes, if they only play a drive, then 14 points is still on the table, I think. All right. Second to last game, Washington Commanders have been bumped from the playoffs last week, but the Cowboys are playing for still technically a shot at the number 1 seed, right? So if they win and the Eagles and 49ers lose, they can take it because they beat the Vikings on Thanksgiving, so they've got the tiebreaker there. So, I mean, it's pretty much guaranteed they're not, just because the 49ers are almost guaranteed to beat the Cardinals. So at the very least, they'll probably still have to beat that, or they still wouldn't have the tiebreaker over them, right? They don't have the tiebreaker over the 49ers. Let's check that real quick just to be sure. 49ers tiebreaker over Cowboys. Let's see. Cowboys can sneak from number 5. Yeah, okay. Perfect. So, yeah, the 49ers have the tiebreaker there. So, it would be pretty unlikely, but technically speaking, if the Eagles and 49ers lose and the Cowboys win, they do have a chance at the number 1 seed. If they lose, then they stay at 5 no matter what. But they also have a chance to win the division over the Eagles, even if the 49ers take that number 1 spot. Again, it's pretty unlikely just based on the fact that the Giants can't move, so they probably won't play starters, but it is still possible, and they won't know while they're playing the games because these are all at the same time. Regardless, the Cowboys are 7-point favorites in Washington. So I think, even if we expect them to win and we don't know what else is going on, there's still the question of whether the Commanders can backdoor cover that spread.
Yeah, I'll take the Cowboys -7. This is another one was going back and forth. I'll just take the Cowboys -7. We're at a key number of 7 here. I think now that the Commanders are eliminated, I don't really see their motivation being very, very high for this game. And then meanwhile, the Cowboys have all the motivation. They're going to Heineke, correct? In Washington, yeah,
No,
he's
no,
one.
no. They're going to Sam Howell.
Oh no, that's right.
Oh, they are going to Howell. Okay, I thought for a second I saw Heineke and I was like, but yeah, no. Even with Howell, I'm again unknown commodity. I know I think he's gonna be. I think he's gonna be a good pro, but again against Dallas, not sure how his start's going to go. So I'll go with Dallas -7, knowing that they have to win, and I can see them winning by at least a touchdown in this scenario.
Yeah, I'm also gonna take the Cowboys to cover here. I think that they're just the better team. I think they will be. They're still gonna be playing for a lot, even if they don't think that the Giants can come out and beat the Eagles because they don't know what's gonna happen. They're gonna be scoreboard watching, but at the end of the day, I think they're gonna take this game seriously from the start. And with Sam Howell making his first career start against this Cowboys defense, that's a tough ask for him going against that pass rush, going against Trayvon Diggs and all in the secondary. That's gonna be a tough task for him as a rookie. So I think it's going to be a tough outing for Sam Howell. I think the Cowboys are going to take this game seriously, at least from the start, and do enough to build up a lead where they can comfortably win this game. 7 points is a lot considering by halftime you may see guys like Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, all these guys sit. But I do think the Cowboys are going to do everything they can to win this game. So I'm going to take the Cowboys to cover here.
This is interesting because we might see Cowboys players sit at some point in the game based on how other games are going live.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Howell's kind of the question mark there because the Commanders are actually not that bad of a team, but it will depend on what he can do in his first start. I think in his first start, with not the greatest offensive line against the Cowboys pass rush, I'll probably take the Cowboys to win, but he also can do some stuff with his legs. So I wouldn't be surprised if that offense moves a bit. Maybe they don't close it out in the red zone. I'll take the Cowboys to cover, but I think we could see one of those weird week 18 performances where the game is actually pretty close because it's a quarterback that we haven't seen before. And Amen Report said, fired or safe Ron Rivera. I think he's safe just because, the Commanders are most likely selling the team this offseason, right? Or what's his name is selling it. So if that's the case, he's not going to want to go out and give a guaranteed contract and go through a coaching search and do all this and have to decide, okay, have these conversations with a potential head coach and different GM. What are we going to do with Carson Wentz? Like, I think he's probably over it. If he has to sell, then I don't think that he wants any additional money, any bonuses, anything to come out of his paycheck, or his wallet. So I think that they just leave Rivera, and then Rivera is probably lame duck with a new owner going into next year. So I would imagine that there's no news on Ron Rivera, mostly because of that. We could see some potential shakeups, but like they might hire a GM after the draft type of thing. I wouldn't be surprised about that. Whoever the new coach or the new ownership is, just because they don't want to go through a season making like last minute trades at the deadline for first round picks for players to try and save Ron Rivera's job type thing. I think you want somebody in who has the long term best interests at heart. But like for this coaching cycle, I kind of doubt that anything happens with Rivera. But any thoughts on that before we pick the Sunday Night Football game?
I would say safe.
I think he's gonna be safe.
All right, but appreciate the questions, Eamon Report. Keep them coming. All right, Sunday Night Football. We have the Green Bay Packers -4.5 at home in Lambeau against the Detroit Lions, who can get into the playoffs if they win and the Seahawks lose, which we will know by the time this game is played.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that the Seahawks actually do fall to a Rams team playing spoiler. I think they'll win, but I don't think it's as crazy as some people think. The Packers are still the most likely team to get into the playoffs just because I think they will actually win this game, but I don't think it's that crazy of a game either. So the fact that it's in Lambeau does help quite a bit, I think. But if you guys really love the Lions, I'm definitely open to being talked into that. Kyle, what do you think?
Well, I'm more curious at what the field conditions are going to look like. Are they going to water them down like they did against the Vikings last week? Boy, man, there was a lot of slipping and sliding during that game. That was kind of strange and unique. I actually am going to take the Lions +4.5 here. I just think even if they don't know even if they know they're eliminated, the one team that you're going to expect, even when they have nothing to play for, to try to go all out is the Lions because of Dan Campbell. And so I think the Lions have a good strategy when it comes to being able to run the football well against the Packers. And then also they do have a good amount of weapons now that are starting to come along. Obviously, they have Amon-Ra St. Brown, but Chark is starting to see more opportunities to catch the ball. You've got Josh Reynolds as well. Khalif Raymond's been good for them. So they've done a very good job in terms of spraying the ball around and not being so Amon-Ra St. Brown eccentric. Also, Jamal Williams is leading the league in rushing touchdowns, which that's a stunner to me, and he's basically come on in the second half of the season. So I do like that a lot. And then also their defense has actually been fairly good in the second half of the season, especially in stopping and run. Remember, at the beginning of the season, you could just run however you wanted, and they've seemed to have shored that up. And especially against a Packers team where they're going to be dependent on the run, at least to start out, in my mind, that could put them in a game where they're at least within a field goal margin, either ahead or behind. So I'll take the Lions +4.5 here, regardless of if they know they're in the playoffs or not, or have a chance to make the playoffs or not.
Yeah, I'm also going to take the Lions at the +4.5 for a lot of the same reason. Like Kyle said, if there's one team you can count on to play hard, whether they're going to make the playoffs or not, it's the Detroit Lions, led by that coaching staff. I mean, this team plays hard week in and week out. I think even if they are officially eliminated, they're going to try and put on a good performance. Guys like, I think it's pretty clear Jared Goff's going to be their starting quarterback next year, but Jared Goff still wants to have one last good performance before the end of the season. This offense is still so explosive. Like I was saying, they have so many different weapons that can give the Packers trouble. And the one big concern I have with the Packers is I have two concerns with that offense. One, is this moment going to be too big for the young wide receivers? Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson specifically, you may see a few times one of them runs the wrong route, one of them drops a big pass, and it kills momentum for the Packers. This is going to be the biggest moment they've played in all year. It's going to be interesting to see how they perform and how Aaron Rodgers deals with these young wide receivers in this game. And it's going to be up to whether LaFleur sticks to the game plan that's been working, which is run the football, get the run game going, which opens up a lot of the quick passing game for Aaron Rodgers, makes his life a little bit easier. But there's just these weeks every now and then where, for whatever reason, Jones gets like 7 carries and A.J. Dillon gets like 8 carries, and it's all on Aaron Rodgers. So it's going to be interesting to see if LaFleur sticks to the game plan that's been working, or if it's going to be Sunday Night Football, big game, go to the playoffs if you win. maybe he puts this game all on his Hall of Fame quarterback, and that may not be the best recipe for success. So I think there's a lot of factors that could keep the Lions in this game. Even if the Packers win, I think it's going to be another game-winning drive by Aaron Rodgers to win this game by like 3 points. That's how I see this game ending.
I still think that the Packers are probably going to win, but I do want to pick the Lions to cover. And then I have a little bit of a backdoor in case they actually outright win the game. So 4.5 points is enough for me. I think it's going to be a close game to close out the season. I think the Packers' experience will get them over the hump. I think it will be close, though, because I don't think it's all but guaranteed Jared Goff is a starter. I think, that's a tough question they'll have to answer because they're most likely going to have a high pick from the Rams in a position to draft a quarterback that high if they want to. When we did our quarterback carousel last week, so Eamon Report said the Lions should draft Hendon Hooker or Anthony Richardson to sit behind Goff. We've had a similar idea, except that we went with Tanner McKee based on ours. I think there's a good chance Goff is back, but I also think that if he folds in a big moment like this, it might make that conversation a little bit easier or harder depending on how you look at it. But I think he's played well. I think he will play pretty well. I think that the Packers will still win ultimately. But that 4.5 point spread gives me a little bit of flexibility. So I'm going to take them here. And then the other thing is you guys can comment on the comments on Goff staying to start and with another quarterback being developed behind him. And also he said percent chance that the Packers trade Jordan Love this offseason. So for these last two teams, kind of two questions. I think I'll let you guys talk about Goff first, and then we can move to Jordan Love after that.
I think with Goff, I would imagine he stays because he's still on the contract, even though I think there is a potential out for them this offseason where the dead money wouldn't be as bad. But I think unless they're getting like Stroud or Young in this situation, I don't see any reason for them to move off of Goff and just draft a guy behind him. Unless you're getting Stroud or Young, those guys need to start immediately, in my opinion. But other than that, if you're not getting a guy that's starting immediately, then you might as well just keep the guy you've got. He's almost getting you into the playoffs, and then get a guy that you think is going to take you into the following era.
Yeah, that was my thought process with Jared Goff too. I don't think he's the long-term answer for the Lions, obviously, but like you said, Max, like they're going to be in prime position to get a good quarterback. I do like the idea of getting one of these guys who doesn't have to start right away, sitting behind Goff for the year, and then get that guy developed, because this is probably the best chance they'll have to get a really good quarterback. Because I think the Lions are going to get better. They're not going to be a top 5 pick next year, in my opinion. So this is the best chance for them to get a quarterback. So I think it makes a lot of sense to get one to sit behind Goff, but I do think Goff will be the starter next year.
Yeah, I think that they can use that top pick on a defensive player, which they really need. Probably they could probably go interior defensive lineman comfortably. They could go corner if they wanted to. They could even trade back potentially and accrue a few picks because they have a second first-round pick, which is their own pick, which I think would be a great pick to use on a quarterback. So whether it's Hendon Hooker or Tanner McKee or Anthony Richardson might go a little high for them. I think, Hendon Hooker is interesting just because they might be able to get him with a second-round pick.
Because of the injury?
Yeah, because of the injury. So, and because they have Goff, they might be more comfortable with that recovery period. And then, but it just depends on how they feel. But if Goff plays well, I think it does make a lot of sense to retain him, especially because he's not crazy expensive. They can move on from Goff for very little dead money. If they so chose, it would be pretty easy for them. So if they decide that they just want to get younger and That's, you know, they can, but I think based on the way the season is progressed, it doesn't make sense to want to do that necessarily. And then for Jordan Love, my thing has always been Aaron Rodgers is not going anywhere. The contract basically dictates he's got to stay there. Jordan Love, the only way that he gets traded, in my opinion, is if he goes public and requests a trade because he wants to start somewhere. Because if I'm the Packers, I have no reason to want to move on from him. I mean, he's probably dollar for dollar the best backup quarterback in the NFL for how much he makes. I mean, you're paying guys like $6-7 million to be a backup, and he's got more talent than almost any of those guys. So it's like I would want to keep him. There's no real reason to trade. He's less than $3 million in you know, in money. So you're not going to find another decent backup for that. And then, you know, you can make a backdoor deal with him where you just say, look, we're going to pick up your 5th-year option because we believe in you going into 2024. Because that would be my concern if I was him. I would want to go somewhere where I have a little bit more guaranteed. And then next year, if the Packers are not playing well with Rodgers, they can insert Love into the lineup. Or if Rodgers gets hurt, but they're competitive, Love goes in and he at least gives them a chance. So I would do what I can to keep him around if I'm the Packers. This could be another Aaron Rodgers type situation. Not that will be as good, but after a lengthy time learning in the offense, he could probably step in without much issue. So I would say it's a pretty high percentage chance that he's still on the roster because no other team has seen enough of him to necessarily want to give up a lucrative pick, you know?
Yeah. That would be my only way he gets traded. I don't even know if him coming out publicly and saying I want to be traded would help him because he doesn't have any leverage. I mean, the Packers can pick up another year and make him on the team for 2 more years. So, and then even then, as you said, nobody's seen him enough to warrant. The only way the Packers would move off of him is if you're getting like a early 2nd-round pick or 1st-round pick. That's the only way I'd see the Packers move off of him, and I don't see anybody offering that up right now.
Yeah, I'm on the same boat. I don't think Jordan Love's going to go anywhere. I think there's no reason for the Packers to move off on him. He's still young, still inexpensive, still a good backup quarterback, and can still be the starting quarterback in the future for them. So yeah, if I'm Jordan Love, unless he really, really thinks he can start right now and wants to like force his way into that kind of spot, I wouldn't want to go anywhere. He's in a comfortable position as Aaron's backup. He knows eventually Aaron will retire, probably sooner rather than later, and then he can just ideally move into his spot. So I don't think there's any reason for him to want to leave. I don't think there's any reason for the Packers to want to move off on him. So I think he's going to stick around.
Yeah, as long as he gets that 5th-year option picked up, I think he can justify staying without being too upset because you basically want to guarantee yourself an opportunity to play as a starter because that's the only way that you can prove you deserve an extension. And so if he gets the 5th-year option picked up, that means that he's guaranteed to be on the roster as the probable starter in 2024. And honestly, like that's as much as any quarterback could want because then you have ideally at least a full season to prove that you are a viable starter and get an extension. So, I mean, that's really what it's all about. I'm sure he wants to play, but you know, it's ultimately it's about the money with these guys because he can still have a 10+ year career as long as he gets the opportunity. I think, you know, just based on the desirability of quarterbacks around the NFL, there's always a chance where a team says, all right, F it, let's go after this guy. Like for the Jets, you know, we settled on Derek Carr with our quarterback carousel for the Jets, but I don't love that as a Jets fan. I would love to aim a little higher. And the fact that LaFleur to LaFleur are brothers and they run the same system or very similar system, they could potentially know that they're getting a guy who's not going to have a huge learning curve and that Jets head coach Robert Saleh is literally best friends with Matt LaFleur. So they're best men at each other's wedding type stuff. So it's like they have inside knowledge. So if they decide they want to go after somebody with more upside than Derek Carr, that is an option. But but I also think that if I was the Packers, I would want to try and avoid doing that. And so that's kind of the only place that really makes sense to me in terms of a landing spot, because any other team would just be taking a little bit too much of a guess based on what he might do for their offense. You know, he has some tape out there, but not a lot. And so that at least there would be a trust factor there, I think. So good luck to whatever quarterback's drafted by Indy. Well, look, yeah, I mean, they don't have the best offensive line, so whoever they draft, they're going to have to build something in front of him. Again, they've got pieces for the offensive line. We've talked about that so much. Like they can rebuild the offensive line. They just got to get a tackle for left tackle, and then they can make right guard work with whoever. They can figure it out, but it can't be two spots, and it can't be the blind side.
Yeah.
And projecting Carr to Washington and Jimmy to the Jets. The only thing about Carr is that he has a no trade clause. So, I mean, I think if I was Carr, I would say, no, just release me. Like I'm not accepting a trade to Washington. I wouldn't want to be put in that situation, you know, because on the open market, somebody will pick him up for sure to be a starter, and I'd waive the no trade clause if it was a team where I was comfortable going. But
do you think he would waive his no trade clause to go to any of the teams in the NFC South? Because I think all of them are going to be looking at a quarterback this offseason in some shape or form, and that's going to be a winnable division.
Well, there's issues with that. So I don't think he would necessarily have an issue to go to any of them, but the Bucks are cap strapped badly. Yeah. The Saints are cap strapped really badly. So neither of them can really afford him. Panthers, they could do it, and the Falcons, they could do it, and I think he would be fine to go to either one of those. But again, I think the Panthers are almost definitely going to draft a quarterback, so I don't know if they want to trade picks for Carr and draft a quarterback when they could go for somebody cheaper like a Darnold or whoever. I mean, the Falcons are a spot that it could potentially be, because they may not want to draft a quarterback right now. They may want to draft a defensive, like a pass rusher high, and then just sign Carr. And try and work with that. I don't know. I think that could work. Yeah, but if I was Carr, the only team in the NFL where I'd be like 100% no thank you is to Washington with everything in flux, because that would have to be approved by Daniel Snyder probably prior to the sale being official. I don't think that he does that. Or based on when the sale would go down, it'd be like the very first thing that new ownership does. So it just doesn't make sense. Tannehill to Atlanta makes sense if you wanted to go that route. I think we settled on, who did we settle on going to Atlanta? We said another mobile quarterback. I forget. I don't know. And I don't know. We had another mobile quarterback going to Atlanta. I have to think about it for a second. But Raiders are cutting Carr, maybe. But I mean, somebody will trade for him, and
isn't his contract's like they get out of it? They have to cut him before like 3 days before the Super Bowl, and then
no, not before the Super Bowl.
Or is it after? Because I know. After. Yeah, I know it's like it's like a weird timing where they can get out of it, but it's not at a point where they can like trade him or anything because it's not the new league. It wouldn't be the new league year yet. And so that's the whole thing. I was like, if you're gonna cut him, well, you better cut him before that timeline. But if you're gonna keep him, you run the risk of, well, you might not have a better option available, and so you're basically ousted a quarterback that's now still going to be with you.
Well, it basically 33 million of his dollars worth of his contract becomes guaranteed on February 15th. So it's the day after the Super Bowl. I think Super Bowl is on Valentine's Day this year, actually, now that I think about it. So yeah, I forgot it's even before. So that's definitely player friendly. But if they can still trade him, it's just whatever team trades for him
Has
that
to
will
pay
be
that.
yeah, that'll just be guaranteed for the new team.
Mhm.
They may, if they're having preliminary trade talks and they have multiple teams interested, they could potentially just take the guarantee, knowing that teams are interested in him regardless of that guarantee. That's always a possibility. Only if multiple teams are interested, though, because if it's only one, then you worry about not getting a deal done and being stuck with him. I just have a hard time believing that he'll be an actual free agent because he holds value. As a 31-year-old player who started for a lot of seasons, you are just leaving so much on the table. I mean, even if you just have to take a third-round pick for it, you know what I mean? It's something that has some
Right.
value. So that's why I just don't think that the Raiders are going to cut him. You know, there are teams. Actually, let me think about this for a sec. The trade deadline is passed.
Mm-hmm.
So they would have to agree to a deal with a team or have multiple teams interested to retain him. That is interesting to watch. It's a unique situation. But also, again, I don't think Carr would even sign with Commanders, even if I don't think he would sign even as a free agent. I would not want to put myself in that situation. I think he'll have a market with other teams. But all right. Maybe Carr for Winston, trade for the Saints. Saints can't afford it. They're in too bad of a cap situation. But all right, I think that'll do it for us today, guys. Anything else that you wanted to comment on that we were just talking about? Any of this quarterback movement?
I don't think so.
No, it'll be interesting though, especially with the amount of projected quarterbacks coming in the draft, which way teams decide to go, because there are going to be a lot of them this draft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am absolutely fascinated to see what the draft order comes
Mm-hmm.
out to after this week, because we'll know the top 18 picks for sure after tomorrow. So I'm very curious to see what happens there. I mean, there's a bunch of quarterback needy teams, and the range of where they pick could fluctuate heavily. I mean, I think the Jets are picking 13th right now, 13th or 14th, 14th,
Mm-hmm.
I think. And so 13th. So if they lose to the Dolphins, that could even be a top 10 pick. If they
Right.
beat the Dolphins, that could be like 16 or something like that. And they need a quarterback. The Falcons, the Panthers, they could pick, either of them could pick in or out of the top 10. I mean, the guys at the top, the Texans,
Mm-hmm.
the Colts, all of those guys could move and fluctuate quite a bit with just one win or loss, depending on how everything goes. So
And
we'll know
it's all
more.
gonna change too with the quarterback. We didn't even mention where Lamar goes. That's gonna
Yeah,
change everything too.
I think he stays in Baltimore personally.
Yeah.
If things get too contentious, maybe he goes, and that would really shake things up. But even so, like that would be a trade thing because they will 100% put a franchise tag on him. There's no way that they would just let
Yeah.
him walk. So that would be um, we've got to see how the playoffs go for them, because if he comes back for the playoffs and plays well, then it's like just proof how important he is to the offense. If I don't know what's going on with his injury, or I think the rumors are that he's healthy and he's holding out because he's trying to make a point. But I don't know. We've never seen this before where a quarterback holds out in season. to make a point about a contract, especially with playoffs on the line. So I don't know. I really don't know. Things get a little messy there, which is something we're not used to seeing from the Ravens. I mean, they're mostly really tightly run. But all right, guys, we will be back on Monday. It'll be Kyron Samuels, Nick Merriam, and myself to recap this weekend's worth of games, talk a little bit about the playoffs going forward. Then we'll be back on. We'll also probably be commenting on the coaches who get released, probably live during our stream. Then Thursday, we're going to talk about the coaching carousel in greater detail and do a little bit of a post-mortem on some of the non-playoff teams, talk about what specifically went wrong for their season. And then Kyle, Brison, you guys will be back next Saturday to pick the wild card slate of games. So appreciate you coming on. Kyle, let everybody know where they can find you and your work, if you would.
Yep. You can find me right here on Gridiron Heroics and then on Twitter at Kyle_Nishida.
Perfect. And Brison, how about you, man?
You can find me on Twitter at BrisonOwen16. That's Brison. And you can see me both here at Gridiron Heroics and on the Denver Sports Betting Show.
Beautiful. So we are going to continue playoff coverage, and we have the entire slate of offseason content now planned for the live streams, etc. So stick around here. We have tons of draft content, tons of free agent content. With Nick as our draft scout, Kyron as our offensive line specialist, we're going to have a lot of stuff for you going forward. I can't wait for that. It's actually one of my favorite parts of the entire NFL calendar. Thank you to Eamon Report for the questions and comments. He says Lamar stays. Yeah, I kind of think so too, even if it gets a little messy. But appreciate you. Keep those comments and questions coming, and we will be back on Monday.
This podcast is brought to you by Gridiron Heroics Media.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.